don't get me wrong. For the Vancouver Canucks, we could have started with anybody in the What's Next series. We've talked about what's next for guys like Jesse Puljujarvi, we talked about Filip Zadina, we talked about Elias Anderson, we talked about Cale Makar. Now it is time to turn our attention to the Vancouver Canucks and players who I want to discuss with you and propose the ideas of what is going to come next in their careers. Today, we are talking about the American sniper himself, the Vancouver Canucks pick from the 2015 NHL entry draft, 23rd overall. Let's talk today about Brock Boeser and what's going to happen to him in the next season. Now, Brock Boeser is a player who is 23 years of age. He recently turned 23. He's been on the Vancouver Canucks for 3 full seasons, or, well, I say full, but not necessarily full if you kind of catch my drift. We'll talk about that as the video goes on. And a little bit of the end of his sophomore season in college. Brock Boeser was a guy who made headlines for himself once he made his rookie debut with Vancouver, getting himself 55 points in 62 games played. He was on pace to break Bure's rookie record for the Canucks, and he was looking to be absolutely phenomenal. There was a time back in history where Brock Boeser was considered a top 20 winger in the entire NHL. Some Canucks fans had him in the top 10, which was quite heavy for a guy who had only completed his rookie season, but many people, even including those at the NHL Network headquarters, believe that Boeser was a top 20 winger after his first season in the National Hockey League. He was really, really solid. He could take over a game with his shot, and the outcome, the momentum, the way the game was played could be drastically altered in 1 split second after you give Brock Boeser the puck. This guy was an absolute goal-scoring machine in his rookie year. He finished off with 29 goals, which was honestly kind of a cop-out. I do remember there was one goal where it looked like Boeser kind of touched it, but it was given to somebody else. Had that one counted, he would have been a 30-goal scorer in his first year, but Boeser's season that year got cut short because Jake Virtanen opened the door to the bench and Boeser tried to hit Cal Clutterbuck. One thing you should know about trying to hit Cal Clutterbuck is that you don't try to hit Cal Clutterbuck because the guy is going to push you away, and Brock Boeser witnessed that firsthand. He went back first into the door that Jake Virtanen opened, and he was out for the remainder of the season. Had Boeser been playing the entire year, though, he most likely probably would have had a much bigger chance at winning the Calder Trophy, which inevitably went to Matthew Barzal. Boeser's second year, though, saw him post a worse points per game, but 1 more point than his previous campaign. He had 56 points in 69 games played, dropping down to 26 goals. Now that, on paper, is honestly really good, but the fact of the matter is the way Boeser was playing in his second year, with Elias Pettersson as the new, shiny new toy in town, it kind of seemed like Boeser wasn't as effective as he was in his first year. Now, the numbers may signify otherwise. I mean, 56 points in 69 games is still great, but just the feeling that the Vancouver Canucks fanbase had when watching this guy was that he had more to offer in his first year than his second year. That the element where he could just take over a game in a split second was gone, and there was a looming idea that Boeser wasn't really playing at 100% either. He had to take a month off because of wrist stuff, and people were really starting to worry because Brock Boeser's best asset, his wrist shot, would be extraordinarily compromised if his wrist started to go bad. In his next season, though, Brock Boeser somewhat came back to form, and the guy just absolutely came alive. In a different way, though. The elite sniper that we once saw wasn't really the same, but Boeser did get 45 points in 57 games. Now, the points per game doesn't seem as great as it was before. I get that. But Brock Boeser in this season was a lot more of a playmaker and less of just a pure sniping goal scorer. A lot of the goals he scored anyway were tap-ins, nice setups from the guys that he played with, and overall, Boeser in the past year really started to hone the passing to his game, the side of his game that allowed him to make others better. I will say, though, that Boeser this past season kind of lost that special touch he had on the power play 2 years ago. That's probably the only criticism I have of Brock Boeser from this past season, is that his power play instincts didn't really seem to be at the same level as they were in the past. To make matters even worse, Boeser was out with a rib injury that people said could potentially sideline him for the remainder of the season all the way back in February. Now, he did come back a month later, but at the same time, that is not something you want to see. So as for what's going to happen next, Brock Boeser in 2020-2021, this is a guy who, in my opinion, is due for a full NHL season. Give him 82 games, hockey gods. If there's anybody who deserves a full season, it is this guy. He's been set back so much with back injuries, wrist injuries, rib injuries, not to mention all the traumatic stuff that he had to deal with off the ice with his father, which apparently is going very well, which is awesome to hear. But if there's a player who deserves a break, to me it is Brock Boeser. And if there's anything that this quarantine, this extended amount of NHL suspension has taught us, is that everybody is going to be at home and everybody is going to be resting up. And if there's anybody, in my opinion, who needed that the most, it was Brock Boeser. There was some rumor going around, once Boeser did return in the middle of March earlier this year, that he may not even have been at 100%, that they were trying to play Boeser because they wanted to make the playoffs and they wanted to make that Toffoli trade that they made worth it. To me, this quarantine is giving us all a reason to settle down and say, okay, Boeser is getting some time off. We're all getting some time off. If there's a time for people to come back from injury and recover, it is now. The playoffs were supposed to start a few days ago, but we're still capped off at 70 games played for some NHL teams. This is an opportunity here. And if Boeser is going to come back to form for next season with that playmaking skill that he got this past year, then we're going to be in for a treat. If Boeser can get back up to 100%, does that mean the sniper, the American sniper Brock Boeser that we saw in his rookie year, also comes back too? If he uses this time to rehab and it's working, do we see a fully recovered Brock Boeser with a perfect wrist, with no more rib injuries, no more back injuries, come into the NHL with the offensive playmaking skills that he garnered from last season, and potentially building on that wrist shot that he had 2 years ago? If everything goes right, Brock Boeser can be a legitimate 75-point winger in this league. And that would be the ultimate treat for Canucks fans, who have had to witness this guy get taken out by so many unfortunate circumstances throughout the year. But is that guaranteed? Obviously not. That's just a best-case scenario in my mind, and frankly, if I were to realistically label what I think is going to happen with Brock Boeser next year, I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a few games here and there. It just so happens to be how Boeser has been shaping up in his career, which sucks, but I see him getting at least 50 points next year. I don't think that's too far out of the question. The guy had, 45 this year? There should be no reason for him to not get 50 next year. If 60, 65 points is what he's able to achieve, then great. But if everything goes right, he plays with Petey, he plays with Miller, he plays with these guys, then I can legitimately see Boeser getting 75 points. JT Miller had 70-something points in a shortened season this year where he played all the games. If Boeser can play all the games, I think we're in for a treat. So, Comment down below what you think about Brock Boeser. What do you think is next for the young American sniper out of Burnsville, Minnesota? The Vancouver Canucks steal of a draft pick from the 2015 NHL entry draft. And furthermore, the fact that he's only 23 is a really good sign too, because he still has a lot of good days of hockey to play ahead of him. But when he turns 24 in a year, where will we be? Comment down below what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. Social 99, and bye.